Hey friends, it's me Micah. This is the Homestead Bandwagon, and today I am comparing two robot mowers, the Lymow One and the Mammotion Luba 3 all-wheel drive. How do they fit so many words inside a name of a mower? Now both these mowers are filthy because I've actually been using them at their property. I see a lot of comparison videos and it looks like the mowers haven't even seen a blade of grass. These things have been getting put to the test. I have had the Lymow a little longer. I've been testing this thing throughout the winter just to see what it'll put up with. The Mammotion I got a little more recently. It is a newer mower on the market, even though there has been an update to the Lymow. We'll talk about that. But I've been running this thing nonstop 24/7 on a pretty big, difficult to mow area just to see what it would put up with. This mower right here, this Mammotion Luba 3 all-wheel drive, comes in some different size capabilities as far as your yard goes. This is the bigger one. This is the 5,000 square meter version. That means they say you can handle about 1.25 acres with this machine. This Lymow One with the large charger, we'll talk about that, they say can handle 1.73 acres per day. Now it might seem like this one can just mow way more than this one, and you're kind of right. I'll tell you, they both perform admirably. I wouldn't say right off the bat that one is superior to the other, but there certainly are situations where maybe the Luba 3 would be better for a person than the Lymow, and we'll get into that. If one of them kind of catches your eye and you want to buy it, I'll have a link in the description of this video for where you can buy it. It will be an affiliate link. If you buy through that link, I get a little money. You should also get a little discount. You won't pay any more than anybody else would, but I'll get kicked a little dough for providing you with a link, I guess. That's how affiliate links work. Feel free to check that out. Let's look at the difference between the tracks on the Lymow and the wheels on the Luba 3. So the tracks on this Lymow, you make this thing pretty aggressive. It doesn't really care what you're driving over. It'll just drive over it, which can make you really confident when you're setting it up to mow. It can make you a little overconfident, and you can set it to mow into places maybe it shouldn't mow. All right, so if we're going to talk about tracks versus tires, hillsides are where the Lymow really exceeds expectations. It can handle some pretty steep hillsides, going up them, going down them, turning, driving sideways on them. It's just absolutely glued to these hills. This is a hillside that I will not drive my zero turn on, but the Lymow just handles it no problem. It chews it up and spits it out. It's heavy, it sticks to the hill real nice, and these tracks give it a really big contact patch to also help it stick to the hillside. So this is kind of neat where you could put it in a remote mowing, where you're manual mowing, where you're controlling it, and you can mow a hillside, once a month or something, just a really sketchy hillside. And get it done. It'll handle some severe hills. It also does really well on mud, on sand, just in snow, basically things you wouldn't mow, but maybe it needs to transit through. It's pretty unstoppable. I haven't noticed it getting stuck any less than the Luba, but it is really impressive what it's capable of doing. So I think in some very extreme situations, the Lymow is just more capable. But for most people, it probably doesn't matter that it has tracks. The Luba can basically go anywhere this can go up to a point. This can handle steeper hills, deeper mud, really loose sand, stuff like that. Again, stuff you probably wouldn't mow. As far as turning goes, it could, in theory, be a little more damaging to the ground with these tracks, one turning forward and one turning back. It could kind of churn up the ground. The programming on this thing, though, for turning on the lawn doesn't have it doing this little skid steer kind of zero turn steering when it does that. I'm manually making it do that. So the program it has internally for for turning has it so it doesn't really tear up the lawn. So I haven't noticed a lot of lawn damage from these tracks, but the potential is there. We don't have a really nice prissy lawn, so I haven't noticed any damage from these things, but it could happen, I guess. And if it gets stuck and it starts spinning these tracks, sure, the tracks could tear stuff up more. Now, something you can do if you really want to impress your friends is take this mower and just have it start blowing through this tall, heavy brush and grass. It just has so much traction from those tracks, the wheels don't start slipping. It'll just blow through whatever you put in front of it. You're probably not gonna mow stuff like that, but it looks kind of cool when this thing acts like a little tank driving through it. Now, the Luba 3 handles in a similar fashion. In reality, it's kind of like a skid steer. One wheel turns forward, the other turns backwards, and that's what makes it turn. The front wheels don't turn, they stay stationary. Again, one moves forward, one moves backwards, and these little rollers here roll. So it does keep very good traction. It is four-wheel drive, so all four wheels are driving. So as far as traction goes, it keeps pretty good traction. Now you can see here that it could tear up your lawn if you were doing real hard zero turns like that. So again, the programming on this thing prevents it from doing those hard zero turns where it's just grinding up the ground. It kind of makes it do a softer turn. I haven't actually tried to plow through grass like this with it yet. Let's give it a shot. I don't know if it'll have enough traction to push through this tall, brushy grass. No, see, just not having those tank tracks, it just doesn't have enough traction to do it. But again, who's gonna try to mow something like that? Now, even though it doesn't have like the raw tractive force from the tracks that the Lymow One has, this Luba 3 is no slouch on hills. It handles steep hills just as well, I think. It might not be able to go up as steep of a hill, but you know, it's not gonna climb walls. But working this hillside, it does just as fine of a job. It can side hill. It might slip a tiny bit more going sideways on a hill. You can kind of see that because this is a very muddy hill because it doesn't have the weight or the big tractive force, again, from those tracks that the Lymow One has. But overall, it performs really well. So if it's going straight up and down hills, you know, and not making big maneuvers on hillsides, I don't think you'd ever have a problem with this thing. But again, it doesn't perform as well in slick stuff like mud, sand, again, places you're probably not gonna mow anyway. If you're trying to make real hard technical maneuvers with it, it just might not do as well in those situations, but normally you're not gonna do that. I will say the designers of this Luba 3 understand its limitations pretty well, so it doesn't get itself into trouble where you have to go rescue it. It'll avoid trouble. Whereas the Lymow is a little overconfident. I think its designers had so much belief in it that it'll try to push itself a little bit beyond its limits, and I have had to rescue it a few times. That might be on me for kind of putting it in situations it shouldn't have been in, but this mower just seems to avoid going over that cliff or trying to drive over that giant branch or whatever. Whereas the Lymow just kind of goes, well, I'll try anything once, hold my beer, and just tries to plow over, under, or through an obstacle. So the Mammotion, you're probably a little less likely to have to rescue just because it understands its limitations maybe a skosh better. Now, one of the most significant differences between these two mowers is what they used to mow the grass. So the Luba 3 is a more traditional robot mower. It's funny that I'm saying traditional since these things are so new, but whatever. It uses razor blades to cut the grass. They're small, they're sharp, they micro mulch, and it means that you got to go out and basically have this thing mow every day or every other day. The Lymow One, on the other hand, was the first robot mower on the market to come out with more traditional, there's that word again, lawnmower blades like you'd see on a lawnmower. These are just big metal blades that spin around and cut material. What I found in using both of these is I found that the Lymow One is more capable of cutting thick material. I mean, of course it is. It has these big blades spinning around, chopping stuff up. But the razor blades that you see in the Luba do a finer cut. They do more of a pretty cut. They do certainly more of a mulch than the Lymow does. So depending on the kind of cut you need your mower to do, one might be preferable to the other. Now again, this one with the razor blades has to run basically every day or every other day, whereas the Lymow, you can get away with cutting once or twice a week and it can handle it. In fact, I've done testing with this thing in grass that was about waist high, and even though it didn't cut it completely on the first try, it did plow through it and cut it down after a couple tries. Pretty impressive. Most robot mowers just couldn't even attempt to do that. As a result of having these big blades spinning around in here, I found that the Lymow One is a little noisier than the Luba or other robot mowers. The blades just make more sound. So even though this can mow at night, I don't have it mow at night in the current area that I have it mowing because it goes right by our bedroom window. So that might be a consideration for you, might not. You can certainly hear it coming easier than you can a Luba or another traditional, again, that word tradition, robot mower with razor blades on it. Now, another thing I noticed that kind of surprised me was that the Lymow can occasionally get things wedged under its blade. There's a big blade and a body, and sticks and stuff can get wedged in there, and it has happened. It'll send you a warning telling you that your blade's wedged, and it'll wait for you to come out and rescue it. The Mammotion, I have yet to see it get wedged with any sticks or anything because the razor blades are so small and they kind of spin away. The Lymow already came up with a solution for that, where they have breakaway blades, where if they hit something like a rock or a stick, they'll kind of spin away. I haven't tried those yet, but I can see how they still could get wedged, whereas these razor blade models, like the Luba, won't get wedged. The other thing we'll see is grass buildup. Both of them get it, but I've noticed that the Luba does suffer more from grass buildup. Right now there's a lot of grass buildup on the underside of the deck, and it's made it so it's not even cutting grass right now. So for cutting a lot of wet, heavy grass, like we always have to do out here in the Pacific Northwest, especially when you need your mower to mow every day or every other day, this thing you're gonna have to do a little more maintenance with getting all this grass and dreck out of here than with the Lymow One. The Lymow just kind of deals with that buildup a little bit better. Obviously, we need to get in here every now and then and pull out all this grass that's built up because I'm mowing wet, thick grass through the spring and frankly most of the summer, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to do that. Beyond that, we do need to take these blades off and sharpen them or replace them every now and then, just like regular riding or push mower blades. You got to sharpen them every now and then. The Luba, on the other hand, you don't really sharpen these razor blades, you just unscrew them and replace them. I've been running these blades for 2 weeks, and frankly, I should have replaced them a week ago. I don't think most people will need to replace these every week, but our place, with how thick and heavy the grass is, and occasionally hitting a rock or whatever, it really dings these blades up. So you're gonna be investing some money in buying these razor blades. Now, they're pretty cheap. Okay, they're not gonna cost you a ton of money to get them, but you do gotta get out here and unscrew each blade individually and replace them. Now, other things to consider is that the razor blades that go on the Luba, you can buy them on Amazon. They're kind of generic in reality, whereas the Lymow blades, you have to buy them from Lymow. Lymow's the one who makes them. That's who you got to get them from. I haven't seen any generic knockoffs of their blades yet. The prices on them isn't too bad, and these blades, frankly, have lasted me a whole season without me replacing them. I don't even think I've sharpened them yet, but it is something to consider. Now, you're going to notice on this thing, I am kind of holding it up. If I let it go, it's going to flop over, and I really don't want it going onto its back. It can, but on the top of this thing, there's a LiDAR array. We're going to talk about LiDAR real soon here. That's kind of sensitive, and if it cracks or breaks, this thing doesn't work. The Lymow One just kind of flips up. It's really easy to maintain that deck. Honestly, it's just a more rough and tumble mower. This one's a little bit more sensitive. So other maintenance things you have to do on both mowers is you do want to clean these lenses in front of the machine. That's what it looks through to see if there's an obstacle it shouldn't drive through. You know, they're both pretty easy to clean. For whatever reason, I've got less goop on the lenses of this one. Okay, that light broke. I need to replace that. I have the part for that. But this lens, for some reason, has less goop on it than the Luba does. I have never cleaned this little lens array. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, this one, it gets a little goopier and you do have to clean it. And you do need to clean this LiDAR array occasionally. Now, a big elephant in the room, of course, is wheels versus tracks, and it does cause some maintenance issues. If you look here, these wheels, these are Omni wheels. This is for turning. They spin sideways. They stay pretty clean, pretty free of debris, even though we do get, where is it, some wrap, you can kind of see here, around the axle. You got to occasionally go through and clean this grass. The Lymow One, if we pop these little covers off that I actually put on just for this video, you will see that we get some stuff accumulating around the tracks. I did this winter have this thing mowing some pretty gnarly, wet, muddy stuff. And I did have one occasion where the tracks got full enough with just goos, or whatever you want to call this stuff, where they started turning a little funny and I had to get in here and clean them. It hasn't caused a problem yet, but we can see, here, let's get really far in here. But you can see if we get close up in here, this stuff's starting to get compacted in here pretty good. You will have to get in here and address this. To do that, you do open up the back of the machine, take out the battery, and there's a screw in here you can loosen to take these tracks off or loosen them so you can get in here and clean this out. So it is an occasional task you'll probably be doing if you mow a place like we do out here. Whereas this guy, all open and exposed, a lot easier to get to that. So there's some differences here for sure as far as maintenance goes. Now, one other maintenance item I'd really look at on these robot mowers, it's kind of dark in here, but I'm sure you can see, is how they charge. And you have to clean the charging contacts on the mower and on their charging stations. So this is the Luba 3 station. Contacts are kind of up and away, easy to access, and they got a little cover over them. So if you have this parked outside, it can kind of keep some of the goos and rain away from the contacts. The Lymow one I have has contacts on the bottom. Now, they have since changed this. By the way, I have both of these parked inside. This is kind of a rare thing to be able to do with an RTK mower like these ones are, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, those contacts have been changed. See what happened here on the Lymow one. Let's flip this guy over. Oh, it's not going to be happy with me. Is the charging contacts were on the bottom. And they have since moved them to the top of the deck on what they call the Lymow One Plus. But you can see how you get some kind of buildup here. So you did have to clean those occasionally. And sometimes they just don't like to charge, or you get goo on here, or grass or whatever, and you have to go out and see why it's not charging, turn it over, and clean that goo or grass off of the bottom there. So that was a thing with the old version of the Lymow. Since then, they've come out with the Plus version. Charging contacts are on the top. A lot less likely to cause problems, but you still get, see here, a lot of buildup on the front of the mower. So you'll still have to clean those contacts. The Luba, contacts are on the back, very thin contacts. These seem relatively easy to clean, but there is a screen back here that looks for the charging station that you have to clean. So there's a slight advantage to the charging system with this guy, to be honest with you. It just stays cleaner longer. Speaking of charging, let's talk about the batteries, because this is a maintenance item nobody ever talks about with robot mowers. Batteries on a robot anything, or batteries on anything, have a finite lifetime on them. There's only so many charging cycles that you can get out of a battery. This Lymow One runs a, what's this called, a LifePo battery? It's removable and exchangeable. I can take this whole battery pack out and exchange it with a brand new one. They say this will have over 2,000 cycles before it degrades. Degradation's a funny thing. Some say it'll degrade to 80%, 70, 60. There's a lot of variables in science and witchcraft, but eventually the battery just doesn't hold as much juice. So you can take this battery, disconnect the electrical here, and replace the entire battery pack on this thing. So that would be like longer lifetime maintenance, which is battery maintenance on this thing, getting rid of the battery, getting a new one. The Luba 3, not a user serviceable battery from what I understand. I haven't seen a way to get to it. I've asked, they've said, no, there's really not a way to do it. How long is this battery going to last? It's a good question. They give you a 3-year warranty on it, and if it fails within 3 years, they replace it or fix it or whatever. That's awesome. I've heard that they can last 4 years before they start to degrade, but it really depends on charging cycles. So if this thing's recharging 4 times a day, it's going to last a lot shorter than one that only has to recharge once a day. So if you're trying to mow an acre and a quarter with this thing, it's going to have to recharge way more often because it can't mow that acre and a quarter off of one battery. It gets about, I think about 200 hours out of a charge cycle. And it takes, honestly, for the area I've got it mowing right now, about 1,200 hours to mow. So, or 1,200 minutes to mow. So it does need a few charging cycles. In the app for Luba, they do have a screen that shows you what your battery health is. Are you still at 100% health? Are you at 80? Are you at 60? How much charge can it still take? How many cycles has it been through? They do give you that data. But with any battery thing, the batteries are finite and limited. So the Lymow replacing the battery versus Luba where you can't, that may be an advantage for some people. It just depends on how big your lawn is. The next really important difference between the two is how they interact with the environment, their environmental awareness. Now, both of these machines for navigation use RTK. RTK right now is your most accurate guidance system available for a robot mower. You get centimeter accuracy with RTK, but with RTK on most mowers, you need an antenna for these things to triangulate where they exist. That can be a problem for some people if you've got a tree canopy on your property or a lot of tightly packed buildings. RTK can lose signal, and that means the mower can get lost. Also, the antenna that you use to triangulate these things for RTK kind of has to be up high with no obstructions around it, which can be a pain for initial install. Once it's there, you just leave it, but it's a thing. Lymow One uses that traditional RTK system plus vision. So it has little eyes on the front that look around and see where you're going and what you're doing, and those help it determine what's in front of it and what it maybe shouldn't run over, like a dog or a chicken or, I don't know, a brick or something. It also has a bumper on the front for a fail-safe, so if that bumper gets depressed, it'll stop and avoid whatever it just hit, but it uses its eyes primarily. The eyes are also what helps it when it loses RTK signal. It can use the camera to keep it on its path to go where it needs to go, and also to park in the barn when it's done mowing at our place. So it'll use the eyes rather than satellites. Now, Luba 3 also uses RTK, but they just eliminated, at least in North America, the need for the extra antenna. This has a built-in antenna. That's all it needs. They call it NRTK or Net RTK. It also uses LiDAR, 3D visual mapping technology. It also uses vision on the front to see where it's going, which means that this thing has a really, really advanced guidance system to help it figure out where it's at no matter what the conditions are. So if you're out driving around mowing, we lose RTK signal because we have a big tree over us or the eave of a house, or you move between two houses, the LiDAR helps this thing spatially awareness itself and keep moving, along with the camera. They both, in my experience, do really well out in our property. We do have a lot of tree canopies, mowing between buildings, mowing under eaves, going into the barn. I haven't noticed one having a better time than the other with navigation, but I did notice that occasionally the Lymow can get kind of lost coming out of the barn for some reason. Like if its vision is slightly obscured because it's dark, it can have problems seeing where it's going, where the LiDAR on this Luba 3 all-wheel drive helps it maintain spatial awareness no matter where it's at. It also gives this Luba the ability to 3D map an area without RTK. They have a drop mow feature where you can just put it on the ground, press go, and it auto maps an area. They're still working on that feature, but it's pretty cool. There are 100% LiDAR-based machines out there that are great, but for our property, a larger property, RTK allows you to cover a larger area. That's because LiDAR takes a lot of memory and a lot of battery. So you're usually limited to smaller areas. It's kind of unique to see this machine that uses LiDAR being able to cover over an acre of mowing. That comes at a cost. You see, the LiDAR mapping in this thing takes up so much memory that it strictly prohibits you from mapping an area over 1.25 acres. You just can't do it. Once you reach that limit, you're done. That's all there is. You cannot add more maps. Lymow, from what I've seen, doesn't care. You can map 20 acres. They might not be able to ever mow that 20 acres, but it'll let you map it. They do have cloud storage for your maps as well. Luba says that they're going to introduce that, so that may exist already, so you can swap maps in the cloud. But just keep that in mind, that you are pretty strictly limited to how big of an area you can map and mow with the Luba, whereas the Lymow, you can just go hog wild. Mow as much as you want, 1.73 acres per day. If you have the big charger, which I don't have, I have the small charger, so get the big charger. If you have the big charger, 1.73 acres a day, mow all day, all night, it doesn't care. As far as nighttime mowing goes, both of them mow very well. But another environmental thing that we're always worried about is obstacle avoidance. Both of them have really advanced obstacle avoidance AI on them. The AI just kind of looks at a thing and goes, hey, I know what that is, don't run over it. And of course, they both have safety bumpers on the front. But the safety bumpers are a little more sensitive on one than the other. The Lymow, this is a rough and tumble mower. It'll really push on something before it senses it. The Luba, it's a really gentle little push on here, so it doesn't have to touch something very hard before it avoids it. So something to think about. I will also say that the obstacle avoidance systems on the two machines, the Lymow is less sensitive. It's more likely to plow through a bush or something that is above it. Blackberries, vines, whatever. If it's not right in front of the camera and not obviously something bad to mow over, it's just gonna go for it, full send. It doesn't care. It's out there to mow. It's gonna get the mowing done, which means it can get stuck on stuff sometimes. Sometimes it'll get fooled and get stuck. I've never had it run over anything important, but it will drive over stuff. It wants to drive over everything with those tank treads. There's not much that'll stop this thing. It'll drive through water, whatever. The Luba has a much more sensitive and nuanced system on it for obstacle avoidance. It has different settings. It has a super sensitive setting where if it spots anything, it just stops and avoids. It's got another one where it'll get a little closer and kind of investigate. And then a third setting where it just uses the bumper. Both of them you can set to just use the bumper. With the Lymow, I've never used just the bumper setting, and it's done fine. The Luba 3, I have had to start using it in just the bumper setting because we've had a lot of rain lately. And I'm going to talk about rain here because they both tell you not to mow in the rain, but I don't have a choice out here. You have to mow in the rain. The rain sensors on these machines are very, very different. The rain sensor on the Luba, let me show it to you. The rain sensor on the Luba right here is super sensitive. I swear if somebody sneezes near it, it'll tell this thing it's raining and it'll go home. We don't want to mow in the rain for a lot of reasons. You can turn that setting off. It can mow in the rain if you want. But anyway, if you do have the rain sensing on, it detects a hint of moisture in the air. It just goes home. The Lymow, on the other hand, here's its rain sensor. I swear, I had this thing out mowing in a monsoon. It didn't care. It was like, that's not rain. It's, I don't know what it is, man. This thing's just set to like mow underwater practically. Maybe if it went underwater, it would send itself back home. I think there was one, maybe two occasions where it took itself home for a rain delay. That's about it. This thing's made for the Pacific Northwest. It knows what real rain is. A little sprinkle? No, we don't care about it. The Luba will go home. The Lymow's like, what? We don't need galoshes. Let's just keep going. So pretty big difference in the range sensors. As a result, the grass can get a little longer if we're trying not to mow when it's raining. And so the Luba for a while wasn't able to mow for 3 or 4 days. And the next sunny day it tried to go out and mow, but the grass had gotten long enough that the obstacle avoidance sensor built into it, its vision, kept seeing things that were taller than its front bumper, and it avoided them, which meant it avoided a lot of grass. I came out after a few days and the grass just hadn't been mowed, and I couldn't figure out why. It's because it was avoiding all of the high grass. The Lymow, it doesn't care. It just plows through the grass, no problem. The sensor's on the front. I just figure, I guess, we don't care if something's in front of us unless it's a human or a dog or a baby or something. So both very safe mowers, but both have a very different sensitivity for their advanced AI obstacle avoidance. I had to just turn it off on the Mammotion just so it would stink and start mowing. I mean, it didn't want to mow over dandelions. So I turned it off, and then it was just relying on the bumper. So that seemed to work, but very, very huge difference in the obstacle avoidance. All right, so which one of these is better? If you're on an acre-ish or less, want a really nice, tight, clean cut, want to have just the nicest lawn on your block, this Luba 3 all-wheel drive is hard to beat. It does a good job even if you don't have the nicest lawn. If you got a lawn with some lumps and bumps and things to drive over, it can conquer them. If we want to be really careful about not running into anything, even dandelions, it can be better. If you have a lot of tree cover, really thick canopy where we can't get satellite signals, it's going to be the one you want. If, on the other hand, you have more extreme case mowing, a bigger property than an acre, a very rough property, huge hills, stuff falling out of the sky that you have to defeat, rainstorms, windstorms, snowstorms, whatever, the Lymow One's a mower that'll just get out there and work no matter what. It's also, honestly, a little bit lower maintenance. There's just less you have to do to keep this thing going than you would with the Luba 3. So if we need a very rough and tumble, basically a sledgehammer for the lawn that still does a nice job, my lawn still looks better having this cut than a riding mower, the Lymow is absolutely your way to go. Basically what we're looking at here is a Porsche Cayenne versus an old school Jeep Wrangler. They're both four-wheel drive. They'll both get you through the snow and the rain and get you where you need to go. This one might do it in a little bit more style, but this one doesn't care. Just throw it out there, it'll figure it out, and honestly, it's a little easier to work on. So there we go, guys. That's the almost verdict on which one of these is better.